TradFi or DeFi, ultimately, there's a set of challenges for financial services, 24/7, global, borderless. But how can we solve it? And the adoption will come from both ends, right? From TradFi's end, from DeFi's end, and most likely we're going to meet somewhere in the middle.
What do you think the time frame is for that? Hey everyone, welcome to Talking Tokens, a podcast focused on interviewing the best crypto founders, market players, and up-and-coming startups that are changing the industry every single Tuesday and Thursday. I'm Jacquelyn Melanik, your award-nominated host and former senior crypto reporter turned entrepreneur, and I'm excited to be here with you all. Now, let's get into it. Today's guest is Chiente Hsu, the co-founder and CEO of Alex, a Bitcoin-focused DeFi platform. Alex is a financial platform built by quants and offers a range of services for Bitcoin and DeFi and so on. And who is better to talk about it than Chiente? I'm excited to have her on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. And to start off, I looked into your background a bit, and I know you used to work in finance. You were an MD, you were a head at Morgan Stanley and Credit Suisse, and you also worked at a hedge fund. So can you kind of tell us about your background and what led you to come into the Bitcoin space?
Sure. So I started as an academia. So I was a tenure track professor teaching and researching financial econometrics. Then Wall Street called. So I joined Credit Suisse First Boston at the time that, I would say the derivatives assets were booming. It required lots of, quant skills to not just hedging, pricing, but also trading, predicting. So that's when I joined Credit Suisse, at that time still First Boston, and work in the quantitative strategies department. And really from there, as an assistant professor, you come on trading floor, you're a little bit arrogant as well as naive. So you didn't respect market that much, but you thought, okay, one day, my model computer are going to replace all the traders, which actually we are not that far from there as we speak today. But that's really when I started my, I'll say TradFi career. Really exciting career. Then I moved to hedge funds specialized in foreign exchange. So crypto, that particular, I would say, as an asset class, not as a technology, as an asset class, at the moment traded very similar to, I would say, emerging market currencies, just because of its risk-return profile. Then I joined Morgan Stanley doing similar thing. I was heading the quantitative investment strategies team at Morgan Stanley. So that was my TradFi experience.
Yeah. Okay. And then what was kind of a moment for you that made you want to jump from TradFi to the DeFi world?
It's a very long story. I think
we got time. We got time.
We got time. Okay, yeah. But feel free to cut it.
Okay. Well, you tell me the story, and we'll get in it.
Okay, yeah. I'll tell you the story. So I think working in TradFi for close to 2 decades, you gain the firsthand experience of this inefficiency inherent into the traditional financial system, right? Every time we do something, we make some big decision personally, there's always a few catalysts. I would say the first catalyst is because, I'm married to a Senegalese, African Senegalese. And every time we send money, to my family in Senegal, this cross-border payment is one of the most inefficient and costly act you can really come down. You can pay 5 to 8% and it takes time. So that's really, you start thinking about, this kind of hurdle is very, if you look at the, financial inclusion, this really is a huge hurdle. The second thing, obviously, is because, I was sitting on trading floor during the great financial crisis, 2007, 2008. That's a different level of experiencing the systemic inefficiency, I would say that's deeper, right? Because you work on this top bank, you sit on the trading floor, but you suddenly see that all these major financial institutions, they were, found themselves on the brink of collapse because of their exposure to some, high risk mortgage-backed securities and credit derivatives. And, suddenly the whole global financial system just froze because of poor risk management. But I think also more important because of the opaque and centralized structure, that it really devastated the whole global market. But I would say really the last catalyst really made me jump. I like to say it's really a jump. It's really the COVID. We are both in this big city. I don't know if you remember at that time, right? I was sitting on my beautiful Morgan Stanley empty office on 36th or 77th floor, overlooking the Times Square, which was buzzing. People were
it was
queuing,
good. Yeah. Okay.
Right? It was good. But your Bloomberg screen, screaming about most likely is the biggest black swan event that happened in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. And you suddenly realize, oh my God, US is, almost the last one to acknowledge its magnitude of black swan. I need to get out of here, right? I want to, have an impact. I have my passion. I understand my skill set. And I really want to build something which is, transparent, permissionless, and global. Mm-hmm. So that's how my co-founder, Rachel, who is, by the way, is also a woman, very well accomplished lady, and myself, we started Alex a little bit more than 3 years ago.
I love that. And what does Alex stand for, if anything? Because I know it's like capital letters, Alex.
Okay. Don't laugh. Okay. So, Alex stands for Automated Liquidity Exchange.
Okay.
But it's also the name of my co-founder's son. So my best idea always come to me 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm. As they always do, right?
Yes, so we always do. So, we're thinking about the names, and then suddenly I just, woke up and said, let's just call it Alex, because its name is, gender neutral, and start with the A, when you alphabetically order something. So it's the first one. And
Smart.
We are truly, thank you. We are truly automated liquidity exchange as we speak today.
Amazing. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about why build on Bitcoin or focus on Bitcoin opposed to maybe other chains for Alex.
Yeah. I think the decision were twofold. One, obviously, is, from the entrepreneur startup point of view, you definitely want to, you want to choose those roads which is less traveled. You don't want to go to those places which is already very crowded and you don't have a competitive advantage, right? So building on Bitcoin, that's I would say from entrepreneur point of view, that was a decision, but also because of our conviction. We came from, both Rachel and I, and also our CTO came from TradFi. So, we understand, the counterparty risk, the balance sheet kind of restrictions. If you really want to build a financial solution, you should build on the most decentralized chain. So we like to say that if you line up all the chains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and, all other chains are upcoming, who is the most decentralized? That's Bitcoin. Who has the longest track record? And that's Bitcoin. But also, other than the chain, so the blockchain itself, and if you look at the asset that, mirror towards the matureness or the awareness of the chain, Bitcoin, we call it the digital gold, right? So I think that was the reason why we decided to build on Bitcoin. With lots of, tears, I would say our elbows and our knees are very, very bloody, crawling
Crawling
in
through
this,
the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah. crawling this Bitcoin ecosystem. Yes.
Right. I was going to ask on that front. Obviously, it's very Bitcoin focused. It is Bitcoin focused. Do you see opportunity in the future for Alex to expand to other L1s or L2s out there if they are on that road to decentralization that we talked about?
Yes, we do. And we have already started doing that. As you know, I think, from adoption point of view, right? The DeFi users are at the moment not on Bitcoin, right? Where do you hold your Bitcoin? I would say 97% of people holding their Bitcoins through centralized exchange. Mm-hmm. That's number one. So DeFi users are not there. DeFi users are on Ethereum, on Solana, and other chains. So if you want to have users as well as crypto capitals, you do need to bridge over or bridge from other chains. That's what we have done. We have a project or protocol, which is also built by the same tech people, by Chang, Rachel, and myself, the three co-founders. It's called X-Link. So X-Link is specifically for this purpose. How can you solve the liquidity as well as the user issues as cross-chain? So we build the X-Link, which is bridging between Bitcoin L1, Bitcoin L2, and EVM and other chains.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a world where, Bitcoin only people will really adopt the Bitcoin DeFi services and what Alex is offering? Because given today, with Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, all these other networks out there, these people are probably more multi-chain than they are just like diehard Bitcoin fans, right? But then when you look at Alex, it's Bitcoin heavy and you're trying to bridge into other chains, right? So where do you see kind of that gap being filled?
I think that's a brilliant, excellent question. So, our mission is build a Bitcoin finance, or let's put it differently. What does that mean, right? We basically want to build a Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley on-chain, right? Now, if you start thinking about why Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, this kind of a bank, global bank, that they are so successful and long-term, I'll say because they are vertically integrated, right? So if you think about, they started with a primary market, which is IPO. Then they have this, right after they have the secondary market, which is trading. Then for their wealth management client, they come up with a structured product through their trading or whatever to offer them a place to invest. And the company can borrow, right? Can have loans, they issue bonds. All these are really integrated financial services. So I want to answer your question in a very long way, is that if you look at all the DeFis at the moment building on other chains, they are very decomposable. Why? Because they are all started with very tech focused, but not finance focused. Now, tech focus has its advantage, and we have really benefit from that. Is that innovation is very fast. We like to call this space, in the sense that, everything is open source. So once you have a good idea on one chain, you immediately adopt this on other chains. You just have to change the underlying languages. But what it also means is that you have lots of these very decomposable services. But from user point of view, it's actually quite cumbersome. You have to swap at one place to get the best liquidity. You have to lend or borrow in another place to get a better rate or not to get stuck out easily. Now, if you think about, okay, once you and I both agree we should build a DeFi on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is most decentralized and most secure chain, then start thinking that you don't need to replicate all this decomposability. You really can start building a vertically integrated financial services. But you need to get the Bitcoin holders, which at the moment, Bitcoin is still the biggest crypto asset. You need to give them, number one, the reason they want to use DeFi, right? At the moment, Bitcoin holder, that very few Bitcoin holder, they want to go to DeFi to generate yield. They have to go to wrapped Bitcoin, right? In order to use on Ethereum. That's like scratching your left ear with your right hand. So you want to give them the reason, which is usually the yield, You want to give them the security, but you also want to give them the user friendliness for them to deploy their Bitcoin, which is their capital, to come to DeFi.
Right.
That's why, I would say our approach is very, very different from other DeFi protocols that you have interviewed or you have used. Is that we have the advantage of understanding the gap between trade and DeFi. And also we have the luxury to really start from the scratch to build the DeFi on Bitcoin.
No, that makes sense. And given that you guys have that expertise, how do you kind of look at what maybe TradFi wants in this space from a financial perspective first, opposed to a tech perspective, like we talked about just before? Like, where do you see the most demand now compared to maybe a year ago or even 6 months ago?
Right. So independent of Bitcoin, if you look at TradFi, what is the most clunky service? Let's put it this way, right? Payment still, right? So I send you money, right? In the US, I think we are very lucky because, we have all these different kind of small services.
Yeah, but like if you go to borders, everything. Exactly. I agree with you. What you were saying about sending money to your husband's family. I have family internationally as well, and it's just a nightmare. Yeah.
I mean, it's as clunky as it can get, right? Because you need somebody almost like a foreign exchange trader in between to clear it, right? So we send dollar, then they have to verify we have dollar. The other side, send euro, they have to verify there's euro and then transact. Whereas you could completely use cryptographically, you can just sign the message, right? Making sure I have dollar, there's euro, we just transact. It's instantaneous. It's efficient, costs much, much less. It's 24/7 and it's global. So that's one thing that I find it so exciting. But again, we are at this place of the world, which, the most innovative country, but in terms of crypto or blockchain, is that the last one to come on board. So that I find it very exciting is cross-border payment. But Alex is not a payment protocol. We are already a few, I would say, years ahead is thinking about if this were coming, right? You build a global payment system on Bitcoin. It can be Bitcoin itself. It can be stablecoin. It can be other tokenized assets, right? Then you do need an exchange to facilitate those exchanges. Then you do need to have a place where the project or the company can raise capital. That's the IPO we talk about. Then you do need to come up with assets that issued on Bitcoin for people to lend or borrow or transact or invest. So that's what we meant by, the whole suite of financial services. So it's not just payment, but we do need to assume and presume, but most likely we are right, is that Bitcoin is going to be the most viable alternative monetary rail, right, or system, parallel to US dollar or fiat.
Alex is a decentralized exchange?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a DEX, is just like a Uniswap, but every transaction is bundled up on the layer 2 and then settled ultimately on Bitcoin.
Okay, got it. The reason I asked is because obviously a lot of our listeners and as well, like the controversy between centralized exchanges and should people be moving to decentralized exchanges? And I think, honestly, personally, decentralized exchanges make more sense for people who understand what they're doing. If you don't understand what you're doing, maybe it's not the first step to get into this space, even if centralized exchanges might come with, more trust in that they won't do exactly what FTX did, right? So how do you kind of look at that conversation in a way, especially when it comes to financial institutions, because not all of them will be on board to, jump on a DEX, either if they're not comfortable with it or there's like guidelines and frameworks within their own companies. How do you kind of like navigate that scene?
Right. So let's look at, let's say, traditional finance, right? In order for two banks to transact, let's say just take the treasury market, is the most liquid, financial market on earth, U.S. Treasury, right? In order for banks to facilitate those liquidities for institutionals to trade, right? They need a huge balance sheet because you have this issue of it's not instantaneous, right? You have to make sure that you have enough balance sheet in order to facilitate those liquidity. On DeFi, this is gone. This is basically controlled by smart contract, right? We call it D2P, right? You deliver your assets for payment. So I think institutional investors slowly but surely starting to understand. Actually, they are using it already. They are just not saying it out loud. JP Morgan, one of the first one. JP Morgan is its own stablecoin. We just don't talk about it, right? They use their own blockchain, their own stablecoin for their own cross-border payment. Goldman is on it, not on the same, but each bank has its own. UBS is on it. They already have those, transact the digital asset for their cross-border.
Why do you think we don't talk about it? Or why don't they talk about it?
Because that's their own blockchain, right? Like if I were Morgan Stanley, why do I want my service to be on JP Morgan's blockchain, right? So blockchain technology or stablecoin is well accepted both by TradFi and DeFi. So that's one thing. But I think why DeFi stand out or has an opportunity to occupy a very big space exactly because it's decentralized permission. And you don't want JP Morgan to tell you, am I allowed to transact, to send my treasury to you, for example, right? So I think what I like to say is that TradFi or DeFi, ultimately, there's a set of challenges for financial services, 24/7 global, borderless. But how can we solve it? And the adoption will come from both ends, right? From TradFi's end, from DeFi's end. And most likely we're going to meet somewhere in the middle.
What do you think the time frame is for that?
Tokenization, when I talk about it 12 months ago, this $1 trillion asset being tokenized, people kind of, that was like 12 to 18 months ago. But now you have money market fund on it. Next will be treasuries, right? We're in the US, we hear about this election, campaign, presidential campaign narratives about DeFi, tokenizing real estate. Time frame, I would say, globally will be different, right? We are sitting in a place where I would say we are one of the last one. Because
in the US, yes.
In the US, that's right. It's very sad to see that, I used to think that US innovate, Europe regulate, and Asia build, right? For crypto, it's like, Asia innovate and build, Europe kind of in the middle, and US not regulate but really prosecute. So it's very sad. It's very sad to see this. So time frame, I would say, Asia, EMEA areas will be way ahead of us, trading tokenized assets. I would say maybe we're already seeing that, by the way. But here, I don't know. I think November might be a good catalyst to see where we are going in terms of, adoption of blockchain technology and crypto.
Right. I mean, we had the spot Bitcoin ETF approval earlier this year. What kind of impact do you think that had on Alex and then Bitcoin DeFi as a whole?
Huge. Right? It takes a black rock to push us forward.
A literal black rock.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It takes a black rock to push DeFi forward. Isn't that cynical?
Oh my gosh,
yeah. Huge. Now people start kind of to understand Bitcoin as, the Bitcoin, the coin, the crypto asset itself as an alternative asset class. Then they will get intrigued, curious about the technology. And the Bitcoin option just got approved as well. And, coming from TradFi, I totally, understand that this will be next push for the liquidity, right? For the maturity of this particular sector. So, and then slowly people start thinking, okay, but if there's a centralized risk, if my Bitcoin on, those centralized exchanges is not really my Bitcoin, maybe I want to try DeFi. And also because DeFi is just inherently much more efficient, maybe the yield opportunity there is bigger, right? So it's huge. I absolutely welcome the ETF as well as the option and later all other particular derivatives around this particular asset class.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you about kind of Alex's journey from 3 years ago to today, because I feel like Bitcoin DeFi kind of became a popular category or more talked about in the last 12 to 18 months. But prior to that, it wasn't really something people discussed. And if they were discussing it, it was just you were building it in the background and it really wasn't a conversation that everyone was willing to have yet. How do you kind of see the industry today for Bitcoin DeFi, and where do you expect it to go, let's say in the near term and long term?
Right. So the reason why, prior to 18 months, your observation is absolutely spot on, right? Is because Bitcoin as a chain, the chain itself, by design, right? Satoshi's design is very simple, rigid. That's why it's secure. So you can't really do lots of stuff on it. You can really send and receive. And it's really because of and Bitcoin is so decentralized, right? Every time you need, people say, oh, we want this, we want that. You want to have an upgrade, take years for the upgrade to be pushed through.
It's slow, yes.
It's very slow, right? So I would say the big step really that suddenly opened people's eye is the Taproot upgrade 18 months ago. Suddenly people realize, oh my God. And also I think people mainstream, don't talk about that much, but, Ordinals and also BRC20 and, all this new stuff coming. Suddenly people realize, oh my God, I can do all the stuff we have done
on Bitcoin.
Right? Ethereum, we can do it here. But for us, most importantly is that you can issue an asset on Bitcoin itself, on L1 itself. And that's really, I think eye-opening. Then people start thinking, oh my God, but I can't really build DeFi on Bitcoin itself. I can't even do a proper, swap on Bitcoin, right? I need to build a layer 2 to enable the smart contract capability. And you have that gazillion Bitcoin L2 now popping up. And I would say this industry is also very Darwinistic. The most resilient one, the most secure one, and also the one with the biggest capital will win. Then we will have a few Bitcoin L2s that will win. But with our setup, with Alex and Xlink is set up, because we are right in the middle of this innovation storm. So it doesn't matter which Bitcoin L2 will win. We are already linked up with them through the Xlink. So ultimately, I think our goal is to become the one place. If you have Bitcoin, you want to deploy your Bitcoin in finance, this is the one place you have to go. You don't need to go anywhere else. The wallet, boom, you can do swap, you can do lending, borrowing, you can do, all other stuff like, subscribing some investment, getting yield, managing your liquidity at one place. So that's where I think Alex is going.
You're selling us. You're selling us on Alex, 100%.
Thank you.
How much demand do you guys have today? What is kind of the user base volume? Walk us through what it looks like, maybe compared to even a year ago. You might not have the year ago stats, but maybe today's.
So I was just looking at the stat. Actually, I look at the stat every day. Our total transaction volume is already over $2 billion US.
Oh, wow.
You think about how small the team is and where we started, right? individual wallet size is still very small. I would say maybe like a 66,000 individual wallets, so it's still very, very small. But the trading volume is interesting, and also, people like to talk about total value locked. I don't like to talk about that number that much, but still, it's like kind of an indicator compared with others. Total value locked, Alex, together with Alex, the sister project such as Xing and others, is close to 200 million, right? So it's not small, but it's not, gigantic compared with, those DeFi giants such as the Uniswap. We're still very far. But that's where the opportunity is, I think.
100%. Where do you expect it to go in, let's say, the next few years? What's the goal?
The goal is to be the financial service provider on Bitcoin. When people next time you are in a dinner party and people ask you, I really want to use my financial service really just on Bitcoin. I'm fed up with JP Morgan or others. The name pop-up would be Alex.
I love that. Amazing. Last two questions. I asked my guests this. What else are you watching in the broader crypto ecosystem that we didn't already discuss that you think is important for other people to pay attention to?
Coming from TradFi, I would say regulation. It's very extreme, this sector. I'm sure you feel the same thing. You have one group of people coming to this space because of ideology, because of the mission, because of philosophy, right? You mentioned about those Bitcoin maxis, right? I mean, if you stick to those people, you won't go far because fintech is developing, right? We have to embrace the Bitcoin and crypto people. We have to embrace the fintech technology there so that we can solve real world problems. So that's one thing, is that this ideology, I think slowly but surely, kind of winding down. You say a lot about the maturity of this sector, but on the other hand, you have this casino type of mentality, really just pump and dump. It's not just, individuals, but also a lot of VC are in this game, right? And so because the regulation is still in the gray area, there's a lot of things that, seems to be kind of normal in crypto, but you write it out, you say, okay, would I put this in Financial Times or Wall Street Journal? No, right? So that's very kind of, the area that, builders like us really don't like. So how can we, I would say one thing that people don't talk a lot about is how can we self-regulate, particularly as a DeFi builder, right? That's what I would love to see is more self-regulation, more, building as opposed to gambling.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think it's so important, especially in times in the US where we don't really know what the outcome will be, but you should be doing the right thing all the time. Yeah,
that's right.
And lastly, Chen, can you leave us with a piece of advice, something that you've carried with you throughout your time in this industry?
Crypto in particular because it's a young sector, it is global, it's 24/7. It's very exciting. That's why it attracted lots of, young talent here. But because we don't have a textbook, it's not like, working in a bank or, pharmaceutical company, right? So I would say one piece of advice is just like we talked about this before. Your conduct, if your behavior is being described on Wall Street Journal, would you be proud of it? Would your parents, your friends, and your relatives be proud of it? And with that in mind, come to this space and build something that is going to have an impact to, normal people's life. That would be what I would say, is that come but with a healthy mindset, self-regulatory, but this is a very, very exciting sector to build something.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a pleasure. And we've got to do it again when you're in the studio with me.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.